This begins media unit number 3. We're on the record, 11:23 a.m.
All right, Ms. Tassin, I'm sorry, you don't go by Tassin anymore. I need to start using the
You can
correct.
use Nina or Dominici, either way.
I'm gonna try Dominici, and I'm intrigued where that came from, and I don't really know if I need to ask you about it
You
right
can
now.
if you want, that's fine.
Right. I'm very fond of family names and those that have significance. I have 2 sons, and each of them is the last male heir of a family name that won't exist after they leave. So I'm curious where Dominici comes from.
It was my mom's maiden name, and I was very close to her family. And it's, they're Oustican, which is a tiny island off the coast of Sicily. And I grew up hearing those stories every Sunday around the dinner table, so.
Well, the Dominici name I've never encountered anywhere else other than the New Orleans area, and so it's very intriguing. But
Yeah, there were, I think, 3 siblings who came here, and then 1 who stayed behind, so.
all right, so I was asking you previously about the administration of SoulCycle Farms LLC, and other than the checking, perhaps savings account that was used for the company and the 2 debit cards that were tied to that, was there anything other than the accounting software that Jason was operating that was used in the administration of the business?
Not that I know of, no, nothing.
Okay.
No other software, or no other bank accounts, certainly.
Were there any kind of manual entry logs that kept up with the yields of the harvest or anything else? Or was that all incorporated somehow into the accounting?
Yeah, we did have some little notebooks that we wrote. You know, we would weigh various things in. It wasn't always. We were working at times with some researchers, and so some of the crops were weighed, you know, related to different treatments and things, but I would have to, it would be a struggle for me to tell you what any of that was exactly. But yes, there was a notebook that sometimes we weighed crops and put down how much garlic we had or whatever.
So once you started the collaborative involvement with Oregon State and the future selling of production to the community, was there any kind of an additional documentation process that was incorporated when you all got involved with that?
Not really. We sold shares of the CSA. The person we collaborated with at the Organic Growers Club has a large listserv, and I believe all of the shares were sold just within his internal listserv. You know, he kind of advertised it, and I believe they were either all or almost all taken within sort of his network.
All right.
And so that would be something else, but it wasn't documents or whatever. It was just how we advertised the shares.
So it's principally through the Organic Growers Club and not through Oregon State that the CSA was offered and
The organic, I'm sorry, finish, I'm sorry.
and the administration of it. As I appreciate it, you're selling this future outcome. People in the local community are buying an interest. And I thought originally you said there's a collaboration involving Oregon State with that process. Was there or was there not an involvement of Oregon State and its agriculture division in SoulCycle Farms LLC?
Okay, I'll try to what's the word? Clear it up. I'll try to clear it up. Oregon State University is a huge university, similar to LSU, Louisiana State actually, very similar in size, and has a big agricultural component and all that. So there's lots of different divisions. The Organic Growers Club is a very small entity within Oregon State University. We were collaborating with the professor who was in charge of the Organic Growers Club. So we weren't really working with the university per se. It was, everything we did was through him. And his name was James Cassidy. He's the person with the big listserv.
Okay.
So he advertised it, and we sold shares, and he would have students come out to the farm and volunteer and things like that as part of their classes.
So was there any type of expense sharing or fee sharing with the Organic Growers Club, or were they purely there as a support mechanism?
I would have to look at the statements, which I believe that you have, the Soul Cycle Farm statements, and specifically like all the checks and everything. My recollection is that we did make some payments to Organic Growers Club, kind of to compensate the club. But I remember a couple of them. I don't know if the checks were made out to Organic Growers Club or to James Cassidy. They might have been made out to Oregon State, but it was one of those three entities likely.
The accounting records that were created for Soul Cycle Farms, we received several things: profit and loss statements, balance sheets for the company. Were those all things that you created, or someone else created for you?
As far as I know, Jason Bradford created them.
Right. Did you review the checking accounts each month for the company?
No.
Have you ever reviewed the checking accounts for the period of time you were involved with the company?
I mean, I periodically looked at it, but I was not involved in that very much.
All right.
I would check the balance because I was writing checks for things, and so I would check the balance and make sure we were good, or talk to Jason about it.
So how would that conversation, what would it sound like when you're talking to Jason about whether or not you were doing good or not? Was it concerned with if there was a profit being made, or what expenses you would have?
Are you asking about how were we intending to make money? Like, what was sort of our thoughts around making a profit?
I don't want to assume anything, but most people, if they start an LLC, they've got some idea that they're going to make money doing it. And they're charitable organizations, but this was not a charitable organization.
I was just trying to make sure I understood what you kind of what you were getting at. So I'm going to wait till that stops. Is that okay? I just don't want to yell over it. Is it a lot?
It's 32 pages.
Okay, well, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. The hemp was intended to be the cash crop for the business. Mm-hmm. The vegetables were not ever going to be a cash, like some big, profit. But because of the structure of the CSA, where you're selling the shares ahead of time, and then you're buying, seeds and fertilizer and labor and everything, and then you're doling out the veggies over time, the money coming in from the CSA was needed to support the actual production, cultivation of the hemp and the veggies. So we were kind of using the funds from the CSA to support both crops. Or by both crops, I mean veggies and hemp. Does that make sense?
Do you know what and I didn't establish an actual time frame, but as I appreciate it, you got into Soul Cycle Farms LLC, if I remember your testimony, sometime in October, November of 2019.
I believe so, yes.
And then you have been working for the River Council for about a year, and so that would take us back
Early
to
2023.
right. And so from the October or November of 2019 until roughly the end of 2022, you would have been primarily involved with Soul Cycle Farms LLC, correct?
Yes.
So just over a 2-year period.
Yes.
Right. Do you know what your total contribution to Soul Cycle Farms?
20, yeah, I think that's right, 2-year period. I guess so. I was trying to follow the dates.
And if I ask something and it's not clear, absolutely ask me. Math that is my friend. Sometimes it doesn't jive for everybody, and calendar dates can be confusing.
I like looking at things, so it's easier for me if I'm seeing like, something.
I could input 2020 to the end of 22 is 3 years, but y'all
Okay.
continue with your questions.
Okay. That's what I was like, when was it 2 or 3? It felt like a little longer, like,
Yes,
but it might have been like 2 and some
that's fine.
months.
It's
Anyway.
roughly 3 years. So
Roughly
let's
3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
2 or 3, yeah.
I'm okay. So the period of time that you have from the end of 19 until the end of basically 2022, you were primarily involved with the administration and operation of Soul Cycle Farms LLC.
Yes, but I didn't do a lot of the administration. So I'm trying to answer you as honestly as possible there. I was not big on the administration. Jason did most of that. The
LLC, who were the owners of the LLC when it was set up?
Myself and Jason Bradford.
Okay. Did that ever change during that roughly 3-year period that you were involved with the company?
No, I don't think so.
I'm going to show you a set of documents that have been Bates numbered. Nina Tassin, document number 6157 through 6188. And these are banking records for the Oregon State Credit Union Soul Cycle Farm LLC account. And I'm going to ask you to look at those, and when you're done, I'll continue with my questions, but I certainly want to give you a moment to look them over.
I'll put them where you can see them.
That's fine.
Well, actually, wrong glasses here. I mean, do you want me to look at all of them or just kind of get a sense of what I'm looking
Until
at?
you're comfortable with that group of documents, I'm not going to impose some kind of a limitation on you. I just want you to, before we start diving into them, because I'm going to ask you questions about the content.
Are there, so like I see big deposits here. Are there like papers that show what those were for? Because I wouldn't have any recollection.
I've never operated or been affiliated with Soul Cycle Farm LLC. This is
No,
why I'm asking you. All I have are the documents I received either by your production or through the subpoena that I sent to Oregon State Credit Union.
Right. I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm really asking. I know that for my personal checking accounts, they were giving you like counter receipts, like you could see the checks.
What we got is what you're looking at.
So there's no individuals, no check copies, canceled checks, or counter receipts.
You're listed on the
That's
account
it.
as an account
Okay.
owner, and
Okay. I don't, yeah.
I'm assuming because you're an account owner and listed, you own the company, and you're listed on the bank account.
Yep.
It lists you and Jason at the top as authorized individuals. So I'm going to rely on you for what you know about that account.
Okay.
All right.
I do not have online access to this account,
Mhm.
so and Jason handled most of the accounting, so I do not
Just-
know a lot.
That's fine. Just answer whatever questions he can.
Okay.
That he asks.
Have you ever reviewed these checking account statements? And this is the Bates numbered series I'd already identified. These apparently go from March 1st of 2021 through November of 2019. It looks like they've placed them in a reverse order.
Oh,
Okay.
they're in a reverse order, okay. I mean, I have seen them, yes, mostly related to this case. So I've looked at them mostly online since the beginning of this.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, if it's okay with you and your attorney, we're gonna multitask here. I'm gonna give you a moment to glance through because there's transactions in there that I wanna ask about, but I also know that there's been a delivery here that everyone's interested in, so we're gonna take a quick break, resolve that issue. You okay with that?
Yeah.
We're off the record, 11:39 a.m. On the record, 12:02 p.m.
It's Dominici, right? I'm
Yes.
missing an I think. Dominici?
Yes.
I don't know why I wrote it down without that. I should have known. Okay. Ms. Dominici, I've handed you two sets of documents. One is a collection of the Oregon State Credit Union checking account records for Soul Cycle Farms that your attorney had provided to me in August. And then the second is a series of documents would be the same account statements as I appreciate it in a different order, and that would have been pursuant to the subpoena ducis tecum that we served on Oregon State Credit Union for production of documents that had your name involved in the account.
Okay.
So
Can you show me which one is which?
the 6,000 range you sent us through your attorney.
6,000, right? Oh, right here. Okay.
Correct. The Bates number is going to be in the bottom right. The range that's in the 2000s is what we got from Oregon State Credit Union.
Okay.
All right. So am I correct in my appreciation that you did not review banking statements on a regular basis while you were involved in the company from 2019 to 2022?
Yes.
And so the first time you've really gone through with any type of scrutiny and looked at these accounts was as part of your involvement in this current litigation.
Yes.
All right. Where was the funding source for Soul Cycle Farms LLC other than the involvement that you had in raising capital through the CSA program from the Organic Growers Club?
When we first opened the account, let me think about this. I guess it would have been November. I'm not sure if it was October or November of 2019. I used personal funds. I had, I believe, texted or WhatsApped with August about, I don't know how much detail you want. Do you want like a,
I'm happy with your answer.
Okay.
If there's a problem with it, I don't
Okay.
jump up and interrupt unless unless someone goes off track.
So-
So if you're answering and I'm satisfied with it, I'm just going to let you keep answering. So you're good.
my recollection, and again, I'm not sitting here looking at documents to help me support that, but my recollection is that in about October or November of 2019, I texted August about the savings account. I believe the last four digits were 1095 of Chase. We referred to it as the MIL, or mother-in-law account, and I asked for funds out of that account, and I removed funds out of that account and documented that and used some of those funds to open the SoulCycle checking or savings. I'm not sure which.
All right, and do you recall what the amount was that you put into SoulCycle Farms LLC originally?
I would have to check the statements, but my recollection is like $1,000 or $2,000.
All right. If you can look at that series of documents that I just provided you, starting with Bates number Nina Tassin 2085, which are account statements from the very beginning of 2020.
Yep.
Right. Do you see there's a beginning balance on
Oh yeah, okay.
document 2085 that shows just over $2,000. It's $2,000.15 is its beginning balance.
Okay. Well, I don't see the October, oh wait, hold on, let me look here. This is,
He hadn't asked you a question.
Okay.
Let him
I'm sorry.
If you can find that deposit, I would be interested to know what the initial deposit was.
okay, based on the one you just referenced, I would say it was 1,000, but I'd have to go back and look. If you'd like me to do that, I can,
Okay.
to try to find October or November when we opened it.
Do you know what the total capital investment was that you made into SoulCycle Farms LLC?
Over the entire time period?
Yes.
I do not know with certainty.
Okay. Was the
I could make a guess, but I don't know.
what is your best estimate on what you put into the company over the roughly 3 years that you were primarily involved in it?
I would say between $20,000 and $25,000. And that is just dollars, no, sweat equity type of thing.
Right. All right. And then what was the return on your investment at that time?
Do you mean over the entire time?
Yeah, if you
there
put
was
20 to
no-
25,000 capital into it, what did you get out of that?
Nothing. I started to explain this earlier. We had intended for the hemp crop, when we put it in the ground, we were expecting to make, let me take these off because you're blurry. We were expecting to make 100,000, something like that, but we did not make any money because the hemp market collapsed between the time we put it in the ground and the time we harvested it.
All right, I'm not a hemp futures guy. I've never traded in
Clearly.
hemp or dealt with hemp. So what happened is, what's your appreciation of the hemp market and why it tanked at that point in an unforeseen way?
Okay, with the understanding that I was very new in all of this arena, and juggling a lot of balls besides just hemp farming. My understanding of it is that it was a combination of people expecting, they were expecting some sort of like a law or whatever, something where hemp was going to be allowed into all kinds of products, Coke, whatever. And there was something with that changed over that time. And then also the fact that it was very valuable, a whole lot of people planted it, and there was just more supply than demand. So it was like a very supply-demand problem.
Did you all just plant the one crop of hemp?
We planted a little bit the following year. but less. The first year we planted a lot, and the second year we planted a different variety, I believe. But I would have to go check.
All right, at this point in time, when you were investing the money into the
Farm.
business venture Soul Cycle Farms LLC, it would have been the same time period that covers the income expense affidavit that we previously had discussed, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that starts with 2020, goes through 2021,
Okay.
so roughly the same time frame.
Yep.
All right. So while you were involved with Soul Cycle Farms LLC and you were investing money into this agency, and you didn't get any return on any of the investment, whether it was sweat equity or the cash infusion into the company, what were you doing for the payment of your personal expenses at that time?
I would really have to sit and look at month by month, where funds were coming from. So I would have to answer that accurately.
I don't have the luxury of coming back to ask you that. I'm here today for the purposes of asking you exactly that.
I produced a spreadsheet that was referenced yesterday. I'm happy to share it if it hasn't already been shared with you.
Would reviewing the spreadsheet help you to remember or understand what you think your income sources were?
Well, so I'm happy to address what I just know from memory for now, but I'd be
Okay.
happy to also look at it. I was going to try to give you a big picture.
Maybe that series of documents that's in the box right there, please.
I'm happy to sort of speak to big picture, and then if you want to talk about every transaction, we can do that.
I've selected certain transactions that I do want to ask you about. I believe this may be the spreadsheet you're talking about.
Yes, I am familiar with looking at it online, and it kind of merged things here, so it's not quite as easy for me to go through in this
I'm
format.
afraid I
but
can't fix that.
That's okay.
So all I can offer you is the best I have,
I'm
and
just
that's the
telling
best
you.
that I've been provided. So
Yeah.
looking at that spreadsheet and with your personal knowledge, can you tell me what was the source of your funding for your personal expenses and those of your children during that initial period of time you were involved with Soul Cycle Farms LLC?
So, wait out. This is not complete. This is all. I'd be happy to provide you with a copy.
If you want to ask a question, I'm perfectly happy to let you ask Mr. Foote, because he handed that to my client yesterday. I didn't create it. I don't know what it is and
Okay.
how it came to be. So if
Okay,
there's
so-
something else that you need in order to answer the question, I don't want to limit you to what you can look at. I just want to know what it is you're looking at when you answer the questions.
Okay, again, I've been used to working with this in an Excel file, which I'm happy to share. Based on what I'm seeing, I think that perhaps the box wasn't checked for my name, because I had it, like A was August, all of the, I don't see me. There's a few with me, but not, it looks like it's not all here. So
I can report, that's the one I gave August. It's a complete list of that one account. There are two accounts,
yeah, so
but
there's
that is a listing of that one account. So all the ones that say credit would be credit. So
Yeah.
again, he's asking you about generally what your
Okay.
sources were.
Can I
He
show
hasn't
you?
started asking you about individual transactions yet. So
Right.
try to just go from your memory and use this if you can, but he's just asking you generally what were the sources of how you paid your expenses. Correct,
Can I
Scott?
ask?
That's it.
Okay, so generally, without looking at transactions, because this is not understandable to me at the moment, I, with August's knowledge and consent, withdrew funds from an account ending in, I think it was 1095. Do we have a DDL I can look at?
Right.
Account 1095 was the mother-in-law account.
I'm handing you your detailed descriptive
Okay.
list that you filed.
Okay, yes, I removed funds from 1095. It looks like $9,025 according to the DDL, which I used the spreadsheet to fill this in, so I'm assuming that's correct.
And that was, what was the amount certain?
$9,025 that I removed
For what time period?
from October 15th, about the date of separation, and I would guess until around March of the following year, 2020, but it could have been April. I don't really know. It could have been longer. I'd have to
Okay.
look at the spreadsheet. I captured every withdrawal, so,
So we have one source of your funding, which would be withdrawal of money from one of the accounts that you and August Tassin had maintained during your marriage.
that was one of them,
Okay.
yes.
Did you receive any money from rental properties?
Any money for rental properties would have gone into the rental property accounts, which would have been on here it's item 203 Chase Octavian Properties 7390 would have, if we had we did not own that property for very long after separation. We owned it until December. So, you know, October to November and November to December, a couple months. And from my recollection, we had a few checks go into that account.
Checks went into the account. Did checks go out of the account to you? Did you withdraw
To
any
me
money?
personally?
Yes.
No.
Okay. During the period of time from October of 2019 through the point in time that you ceased operations with Soul Cycle Farms LLC, which would have been 2022, right?
Okay, wait. You lost me. So from October 2019, I'm sorry.
Let's do this. October of 2019, August Tassin filed a petition for divorce, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So 2020, 2021, 2022, and D, you started with the River Council. So you're operating Soul Cycle Farms LLC in the period of time that is contained
Okay.
with those calendar years. Does that objectification help?
Yes. In
All right.
terms of what's
So there's a period of time right in here.
right.
And I want to know, if you went to the Winn-Dixie to buy a package of bacon,
Okay.
how'd you pay for it?
Okay. So
Because I'm married, I understand the concept that my wife thinks that there's a tree in the backyard that generates money bills and they just mysteriously fall to the earth. That's not in reality how this works. At some point, somebody has to put money into an account.
I understand.
Money comes out of the account, and I know that you had expenses because you have 2 kids during that period of time. The kids cost money regardless.
Yep.
And you've got rent, and you've got gas, and you've got food, and all these things. How are you paying for those things?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
Big picture, early on, and I could reference the before mentioned spreadsheet for exact dates, but early on, late 2019, early 2020, there were several withdrawals from the account I just mentioned, 1095, Chase 1095, and Chase 6651. I think there were some checks, but I was also continuing to use the debit card for, it was a few months, and I would need to check the spreadsheet to get the exact information.
Right.
And then, so that was kind of early on. Should I continue?
Yes.
One of the things that happened was that when I found the rental house, I had to pay rent 6 months in advance in order to secure the house, and there were deposits and I needed appliances. There were several big expenses. And we had recently sold the rental property, but August did not want to give me my half. So
When you say the rental property, you've discussed 3 that I know of.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not even getting into New Orleans properties. So
Okay.
just Donaldsonville properties, which one would we talk about?
1240 Mississippi Street was
Okay.
sold in December of 2019.
And that was the 4-plex?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I asked him for funds to pay for rent and moving expenses and whatever. And so he moved, I believe it was $30,000 from Ameritrade. And when I say he did it, it's because he had access to Ameritrade. He moved $30,000 from Ameritrade into the Chase 6651. And I removed those funds through checks and credit card use. Not credit card, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, it was a credit card that was paid, auto paid out of that account. And I believe that the total funds that I removed were around $21,000, because that's what I wrote here. But I'd have to check the spreadsheet to make sure.
Okay. So,
And I have more if you want me to keep going.
yes, so you have money that came from the account 1095, ending 1095, $9,025 you took out at the beginning. There was $30,000 transferred from the Ameritrade account to the Chase 6651 account that you then took possession of. Was there any other transfers of money between August and you during the time period that I've identified on that sheet?
Can I make a correction?
Sure.
You just said there was $30,000 that he moved and I took possession of. I did not take possession of it as a whole $30,000. It was all accounted for in transactions through that checking account. And so they didn't, it wasn't that he moved $30,000 and I wrote a check for $30,000. It was in multiple small transactions.
However
just
it
to
occurred,
clarify.
during the period of time, did August spend any of the $30,000? Did he go write a check, use a debit card, or in any way deplete the corpus of that $30,000?
So there were, again, the spreadsheet that I'm very happy to share has detailed transactions, and some of those transactions were related to house payments and utility payments, and as August mentioned yesterday, auto pay on cards, the Discover card that I hadn't used in many years. So there were lots of things that were paid out of that account. And again, I would be very, very happy to share that spreadsheet.
Honestly, let me just be clear about this. I don't want things in the future. I've asked for them in the past. Today we're here because I'm asking for a final accounting and answers to questions. So I'm trying to get to those answers to the best of your ability. If there's something that you haven't reviewed or don't know or don't have today, then we'll just accept that you don't know it, don't have it, or it's not accessible. So I'm just looking for the best answers you can give to these questions.
Okay.
Let me be very pointed then. Other than money transferred through whatever accounts by August Tassin to you during that time period, did anyone else, whether it was your parents, your brother, whether it was Jason Bradford, did anyone else give you any amount of money during those 3 years, that rough 3-year period?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a specific recollection of, I believe it was like $9,000 that I borrowed from my parents to pay off the Kia lease so that I could then sell the Kia. And there was a period of time when I would have to go back and check all these records, but there's a period of time, like all the statements that I believe you have.
Right. When would be the appropriate time to go back and check records to verify content?
I'm sorry?
When would it be a good time to go back and verify these things? Did you happen to review all of those records when you were preparing your answers to our discovery requests?
Yes, I did, but I actually really thought I would be handed documents related to, you have all the documents, and Frank.
We actually have turned over every single document acquired in this case to your attorney.
No, I know that.
And they're all numbered for a reason.
I know, I'm just saying, I thought I would be able to look at them right now. I didn't understand that I would have to have it all memorized, so.
You don't
I
have to-
appreciate that. He's just asking who gave you money during those 3 years. He's not asking about specifics. If he asks you about specifics, he might show you a document. He's just simply asking you who gave you money
So
during those 3
I
years.
got money from my parents through my
Okay.
brother. I got money from the checking account that I mentioned and the savings account that I mentioned.
That being the
And-
10095 or 1095 and
The
the
1095 is the savings account.
6651. Okay.
And I got money from my parents, which, to the best of my knowledge, is my brother accounted for in the dividing of the estate later.
The estate that we were talking about earlier, you mentioned that there was your parents' house and your grandmother's house. Were there other houses or pieces of real estate involved in the estate of your parents?
No.
Former business holdings, other houses?
No, my dad had a business, but it was long since closed. I believe I believe my brother had to deal with like officially closing it. There was no assets that I knew of.
To your knowledge, has your brother kept a separate checking account or bank account of some type that he's used for the administration of the estate?
I don't know. I assume. I think it is separate, but I don't know.
Or as the other heir of your parents, are you listed on the account for the estate of your parents?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm on that account. I would have to check the records. I don't believe I am. I believe he's listed on it.
What records do you want to check? I've got almost
I can-
6,000 of them. Some of them list you and your parents as owners of an account.
I would have
so-
to check with my brother. I don't know if I'm on that account or not.
Okay.
I don't believe that, I don't have those records. Are they, can I ask a question? Are they in this collection of thousands of documents?
Just ask what your memory is.
I don't
So-
think I'm on that account.
Okay.
I'm going to hand you a series of documents. These are,
Sorry, I thought of something just now.
okay, if you've thought of something, I always encourage people, because things pop in our heads, and there's no rule that says if you didn't remember it then, but you remember it now, you can't say it. So what popped in your head?
During the break earlier, I had previously, when we were talking about this, told you I thought the attorney's name was Andrew Buchler. I looked it up. It is, in fact, Andrew, Buchler,
Wonderful.
in Metairie,
Awesome.
and I can provide you his contact information.
If I need to find him, I'm more than capable of popping him up quick. I want you to look at a series of documents. These are answers to interrogatories. There is an informal response by your attorney that was provided to me. You can, if you have questions about the content, I did not create the documents, but you are certainly allowed to ask him if you have certain questions about them.
I believe, I believe that I filled this out long ago. Is that true?
Seemed to be with Arlene, so I'm assuming that was before us, but take a look at it and see if that's what your answers with your previous attorney are.
Passive or active? What, I'm having
Try
trouble.
not to speak out loud since we're doing video recording when you're reviewing.
It says from January 1st to the current date.
It would have been as of the date you filled this out, obviously, if you filled it out, if he's not asking about future since. So review the files to yourself without speaking and then tell Scott when you're ready to answer questions.
Okay. Okay, I remember filling this out. Happy to answer questions.
All right. So I am particularly interested, if you'll look, there is an email that we've identified with the Bates number. It's got an Exhibit E sticker on it, but it's Bates numbered August Tassin document number 1560.
Do I have that?
You do, it's in the sequencing of events, or of documents. If you need me to point it out specifically, I can. Oh, this is the predecessor to it. Let me print this one. I'll just print you the Bates number version of it. Hang on to those for a second. I got this.
Mr. Gaspard,
Yeah.
I wasn't really done asking this, answering this previous question. I'm fine with And maybe what you're asking me now is part of that bigger question.
Okay.
But I'm just telling you I might have other things to
The
add.
previous question would be
Of-
the one regarding sources of funding for that roughly 3-year period?
Yes.
Okay, what other response would you like to give?
And again, this is big picture. I'd need to look at dates, but I received some payment from the DeArmond farm with the work that I did over the summer. I don't remember the date of that payment.
It was a one-time payment?
Yes, and from my recollection, I was paid actually for my time and Isabel's. They like put it together in one check. I don't really know, but I believe it was in one payment.
Okay.
And it had something to do with, we just agreed to work and then get paid at the end because of them selling the crop or something like that. So it was a lump payment. And then I believe I had a Glisten property payment, but I couldn't tell you if it was right before or right after separation without looking. I might have even had two.
And those would have been in that time frame from the end of
I believe
2019 through 2022?
Yes.
All right. And the Glisten Properties payment would have been related to houses that you previously listed, or?
Yeah, that I had listed and sold.
Is there a reason that there would have been such a substantial lag in time between the sale of the house and your being
Well,
paid by
one
the
of
company?
them may have been the 1240 Mississippi Street. I can't remember. I would have to go and look at the records. I don't know. One of them may have been the rental property on Mississippi Street.
All right.
You asked about that earlier, if I was involved in any of the sales. I don't think I was for Landry and Lee, but I don't know. But I believe I was for Mississippi Street. In fact, I'm almost certain I was, now that I think about it.
All right. So, other than money that your brother would have directed to you from the accounts of your parents, or money that would have been transferred to you by August Tassin from the accounts that you all had previously maintained, payments of DeArmond Farms to you for your and Isabella's contributions to their growing cycle, whatever it is you worked there in the summer of 2019, and potentially one or two properties that you might have received commissions from for Glisten properties. Was there anyone else, such as the Bradfords or anyone else, that would have given you any type of financial assistance during that roughly 3-year time period?
The Bradfords gave me financial assistance in the form of like letting me live in their house.
That's pretty cool assistance.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I slept on their sofa for about 5 or 6 months.
all right, and there was no rent that they charged you, so it was obviously of significant benefit to you.
Yes, and Ian lived in their upstairs loft. Towards the, I believe it was probably November, December timeframe, towards the very end of that arrangement, before we moved out and got a house. I did write some kind of nominal checks to them for rent that were part of Ian establishing residency for college, just to show that he was, had a domicile and kind of part of that process. We were advised that he needed to have some rent or something, so.
The contributions, the $20,000 to $25,000 you think that you contributed to Soul Cycle Farms LLC, we're talking the capital contributions, not sweat equity work that you did. Would those have been written out of a particular account?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Right, you previously, and I don't want to misrepresent what you said, but my appreciation is that you said there was roughly 20 to 25,000 of
Right.
capital contributions you made,
Mhm.
cash infusions into Soul
Yes.
Cycle Farms LLC. How would that money have been placed into the company? Would it have been
Into Soul Cycle.
deposited into that checking account we're looking at?
Okay, so the first 1 or 2,000 came from my Oregon State Credit Union, but how it got to my account was from, I believe, from the 1095 savings account. So the 1095 savings account to Nina Tassin at Oregon State Credit Union, and then from there to Soul Cycle Farm. And then I would need to look at the documents to know a date. Isabel, well, August and I had more or less agreed that there was money in Ameritrade for both kids. There were checks written to them. Some of those funds went to Isabel, and she and I had a conversation around this. I didn't just like go take it, but we invested $20,000, or I invested $20,000 of her money into the farm, and then I have since paid her back.
There's a lot to unwrap in that. Let's
Yes,
take
so
it bite by
I'm
bite.
trying to do bite by bite, yeah.
So you invested roughly $20,000 of your daughter's money. She would have been 17 at the time,
I believe she was 18. She was starting college.
2019.
No.
It was after that.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And again, I'd need to check the statements, but
I've got them. We're going to go over them in detail in a minute. I just want to
Okay.
understand the context of what's there. So the investment of her money would have been later in your involvement with Soul Cycle Farms LLC.
Mhm.
And what was the purpose of investing her money into a venture that never returned a profit for anyone investing in it?
Okay, the way I am.
I'll back up and build it layer
the
by
way
layer.
the way
Did-
you were asking the
Yeah.
question makes it sound like I was taking her money. I gave her back her money, so I considered it like
I'll
I
ask,
loaned to her, like I owed her money back, and I have more than paid her back.
your perception is certainly something that I'll get into at the end of the sequencing of sentences. I'm going to just break it down item by item. It did, in the period of time from late 2019 to the end of 2022, is there any person, whether they are a natural person, flesh and blood like us, a juridical entity, which would be another LLC, corporation, or anything else, or any organization of any type that ever received any kind of financial profit from its involvement in any way, directly or indirectly, with Soul Cycle Farms LLC?
Profit from Soul Cycle Farm
Yes.
LLC? No.
Okay. So for the period of time that you were involved with Soul Cycle Farms LLC, there was never a profit derived by anyone with the company.
Not that I know of.
So at some point after your initial investment in the company and the failure of the initial hemp crop to return a profit, there was a continued capital investment and also investment of time and energy in the company by you personally. But then you also invested some roughly $20,000 of your daughter's money into the company.
Again, I'd need to check the timing, but I believe it was the fall of 2020. I believe it was fall of 2020. Do you have the transaction? Because that would be helpful.
I've got several documents I'm going to ask you to look at. These are, and if you could do me a favor and let's just do a little housekeeping. There's a whole slew of papers in front of you and things are going to get shoveled in together and become confusing. Whatever you're not using, if you could just make a stack over here.
Detailed descriptive list.
Yeah. And if we need to go digging back in the pile, we can. All right, I'm going to give you 5 documents for review. The first is numbered August Tassin 2231. It's a check to Isabel Tassin.
Okay.
Then there is document 2258, which is part of the Oregon State Credit Union documents. 2273 is also part of the Oregon State Credit Union documents. 2280 and 2119. So I'm going to ask you to take a look at those because I believe that they evidence the sequencing
Thank you.
of that investment.
Okay.
Mr. Foote, while she's looking at that, and not to involve her with the request, but I'm going to make the request directly to you. I'm going to make a formal demand for all sources and amounts of her funding for that period of time from October of 2019 to the end of 2022. I know she's referenced a number of times. If I could check the records, I'm going to ask that the records be checked and that all amounts she received from any source of any type for that period of time would be identified, whether it is an update to a discovery request or just a new request pursuant to this deposition.
And so I've written that down, and my comment or partial objection would be up until the date of from October of 19 until when the end of either child support or spousal support would have ended is relevant, which is the same objection I made in the original motions to compel, and I think the courts have ruled on. So I did not go study the judgment from the court, but to the extent that the court limited the time span, then I would have an objection to provide after that. If the court's ruling coincided with to the end of 2022, then I'll take your request and treat it as a formal discovery request.
If you want to limit it to the amount of time that would be applicable to potential claims for spousal support or child support.
That's what that was my objection, yes.
Yes, ma'am. So with the lawyer chat aside, you've had a chance to review those 5 documents?
Yes.
All right. So my appreciation would be that the document is base number 2231, a check to Isabel Tassin, with a notation it's for Apple stock, an amount of $21,650.40.
Yes.
It's my appreciation that while your children were young, they would periodically receive gifts from family or friends. Some of those might be cash gifts, birthdays, Christmases, and the like, and that those funds were used to buy stock that was of a particular interest to the children.
Okay.
My understanding was that Isabel was an Apple fan, as many young people are, and that your son chose Marvel stock, which of course then became Disney, which was a very lucrative thing for the time. And so, is it your understanding that this check written to Isabel by her father would be a payout of her childhood investments in Apple stock over those several years of receiving gifts?
I did not have that level of detail of assessment of it, but I did know that we had discussed stocks that were for the kids and that was for, college money or whatever, yes. And that it was in our Ameritrade account, I believe.
So the next documents, the 2258 and the 2273, would show a deposit into the account of Isabel Tassin ending 1578. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then lastly, there are base number documents 2280 and 2119 that show a $20,000 transfer from her account to Soul Cycle Farms account ending 680.
Yes.
All right. So I think that would provide then the details to what we were previously discussing. The date on the transfer into Soul Cycle Farms LLC was November the 13th of 2020.
Yes.
All right. That is over a year into your involvement with the company. At that point in time, you all had already realized the loss on the initial hemp crop or not?
No.
Okay. When was the loss on the initial hemp crop?
Are you asking an accounting statement? Or?
No, in general terms, like when do you, I don't grow hemp, don't know anything about it. I've grown a whole lot of stuff, but never hemp. So
this would have been the time during which we were processing, and so we had harvested it and were still thinking we would be able to sell it for a profit.
was there some, what did you?
I mean, certainly I thought we would be able to sell it for a profit.
What did you, right? What did you rely on to have a working knowledge of the hemp market? How did you garner information about the hemp market?
From local experts who were also working in the hemp market. And by experts, I just mean they were people who had been doing this business for, nobody had been doing it very long, but a year or two. So I'm calling them local experts who had done that
Sure.
before. People that we partnered with on harvest and drying and processing, and the internet, and talking to brokers and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that's late 2020. You take $20,000 of Isabel's money and put it into the company. It's 11/13/2020. 20,000 goes in. When is it after that that you realize the hemp market is sucking eggs and it's not going to make a profit for us like we thought?
It was some time after that, because
A day, a week, a month, a year?
months, because and again, I was very new to all of this, okay? So I was relying on what other people around me were saying, but it was months, because it's always a cyclical market with, all the crop comes in the fall, and then people are kind of racing to dry it and process it, and so there's more of it, supply and demand type of issues. And so there was some extended period of time over which we were hopeful that we would be able to sell it for quite a bit. Actually, many months, because we were not sure. There was a lot of uncertainty around like when that might change. I would say it was a solid year before we completely said, yeah, this isn't going to work.
So in November
And
of,
I'm sorry, can I say one more thing? And we kept changing we were trying to adapt our strategy as well to what we thought would be smart in terms of our initial intention was to sell it what's called farm gate, which is where, it's in demand and we get to just be farmers and we get to grow it, and then we're going to sell it to a broker or somebody who's just going to buy a lot of this crop and then sell it to processors or whatever. And when that wasn't going to work, then we're like, okay, well, we'll get it processed and we'll sell the raw material. And then it was like, nope, we're going to make product. So we kept trying to adapt our strategy to what was a changing marketplace. And eventually I honestly could have continued that and probably had some success, but I just wanted to get a regular job. So
when was it that you decided you wanted to get a regular job?
probably, well, I had thoughts of doing that early on. I thought about doing a lot of things. There were a lot of things that weren't really possible. So it depends on what time frame you're talking about. But
Anywhere in
had
the
a
3 years.
Okay, so early on, I had, I had looked at getting my real estate license for that area, talked to a local broker, and that looked like it was going to be a long haul to get up to speed.
What's the number? Okay.
And so real estate didn't look viable for any long period of time. I was searching for an Oregon State University job. I had many times had been like trying to look for Oregon State University jobs because Ian would not have had to pay nearly as much tuition. It would have been like, I think 70% off. So I was continuously looking for jobs there. During COVID, they had a hiring freeze and they didn't have a lot of jobs, and that really just opened up about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago. That kind of got all sorted and back to normal. And I did apply for a couple of jobs there, but I looked into getting certified to teach and was talking to a master's program at OSU to do that, and I didn't have the funds for it. It was $25,000. So
would that have been a requirement for you to be able to teach?
yes, and I could have probably borrowed funds from my family or friends, but part of why I chose not to do that was because unlike here, my coming from here, I was like, I'll be able to get a job as a teacher, no problem. But the jobs in Oregon are not, I was afraid I would spend $25,000 in a year and not necessarily be able to get a job that I wanted close by. So I decided it wasn't the right thing. And through this whole entire time, I'm caring for, well, not the whole time, but the beginning part, I had my elderly parents and COVID and kids home doing school in the basement. So there were a lot of other things going on.
Lots of moving parts. Can I get those 5 pages back from you, please? If I need to ask another question, I will hand them to you again.
These?
Yes,
Sure.
just all the ones I just handed you. Great. All right. So you said that there were funds that were transferred to you by your brother from money that he was maintaining for your parents at one point. I think there's roughly $9,000 for assistance with a car lease or something like that. Okay. So was he primarily involved in the maintenance of their their financial stuff? I mean, is he primarily the guy that ran the show when it came to running mom and dad's accounts?
Yes, for several years
All right.
prior to their deaths.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at a document I've got that is it's August Tassin document number 2236. When you're done, let me know.
Okay.
So that is a check dated March 13th of 2021
Yep.
for $2,000 made out to Isabel Tassin.
Yep.
It's drawn on an account in the name of Joseph Skinner or Camille Skinner or Nina Tassin.
I see that.
And so that account that sits at Hancock Whitney, I'm curious to know, what is it?
My brother was overseeing the big picture on their finances, and are you asking about the account or the $2,000? Because I was going to try to answer the account question first.
I'm asking about the account.
Okay.
So is that your signature on
That
this check?
is my signature on the check.
Okay.
I actually don't know what that was for. I don't know what the $2,000 was for. It could have been, I don't know. I have no idea. I probably could figure it out, but I have no idea what it was for. It might have been, was there one for Ian? I don't know.
So,
I'm not trying to butt in, but he's asking about the account.
Yeah, I had.
Sorry, Scott.
Okay. I had a
if you
check.
can help me to get where I'm going, I'm good.
I did have a checkbook that I frequently wrote checks out of on behalf of my parents. Usually they were to caregivers and stuff like that. So I had access to a checkbook to write checks for things that my parents needed.
Mm-hmm.
But my brother managed the account. And I didn't ever see statements or anything. I would communicate with him about spending.
So I'm going to suggest to you this. If you're listed on the account as the check identifies you being listed on it, it typically requires that you're an owner of the account.
Okay.
Now, people do that all the time. My dear sweet departed mother did it for me. I didn't realize why I kept getting Regions notices, and then it dawned on me. She'd taken me to the bank one day and said, "Honey, I'm putting you on this account because when I'm no longer in this world, you can transact business and you don't have to have documents from a succession to do that." So it's a smart thing for people to do. My question would be, if you're obviously listed as an owner of the account with your parents, and that's got their former home address on Walmsley Avenue, how long did you have possession of the checkbook for that account?
Oh, probably multiple years, probably from the time that they moved to Baton Rouge.
Right, because if it
Until-
lists Walmsley, it goes back to before you put them in a condo in Baton Rouge, right?
Yeah, but we never changed, I don't think we ever changed their address.
So they
So-
still sent the invoices, or they still sent monthly account statements to Walmsley after your parents had moved from that address?
Probably, yes. My brother was living in the house.
In the Walmsley house?
Yes.
How long did he live there?
I think it was 2016. It might have been 17 until we sold it in maybe 2022,
Okay.
something like that.
So the account balance in that account, what kind of an account balance was maintained in that account?
I have no idea.
Okay. Did you ever review the statements for that account?
No.
Why was it you didn't identify that account as one that you had signatory authority for in your discovery answers?
I didn't think about it. I didn't consider it my account.
So that wasn't the question you were posed. The question you were posed was to name any account that you either were an owner on or an authorized user or had signatory authority over the account. I know that because I asked the same question and have for almost 30 years. And when you were preparing your answers to your discovery responses, did you go back and look at all the documents you had available to you to determine which accounts you actually were either an owner of or had authority to transact business with or were a signatory on the account? Whether it's on your credit report or whatever you had available to figure out the list of those accounts.
I went from my memory. I went and thought about everything I could think of and wrote down all the things I could think of.
Okay. Would that not have been a good time to verify with something more than just your recollection which accounts you actually had authority over?
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't include it.
If I could have that document back, please. You still have the checkbook for this account?
I don't know. I probably do somewhere. I don't know. I haven't used it since, as far as I recall, I haven't used it in a long time.
Did you ever rent properties through Airbnb?
Yes.
Which properties would you have rented through Airbnb?
Any of the units, there were 4 units in the 1240 Mississippi Street, 1240 Mississippi Street in Donaldsonville. There were 4 units.
Mm-hmm.
As I previously mentioned, there was a house at 101 Landry Street, and there was a house at 502 Lee Avenue.
That's all Donaldsonville
All
properties?
Donaldsonville, yeah. So there were 3 Donaldsonville properties. And there was our home in Riverbend that had a mother-in-law suite.
Okay.
And so depending on the year and the time snapshot, we would have had any of those listed on Airbnb.
Hang on half a second. I'm going to make a second formal demand for the production of documents. Those would be with regard to that particular bank account for the time period starting with, say, August of 2019 through the end point that you and I had already discussed. I won't ask for anything beyond the last date of formal demand for spousal support or child support.
Okay.
We are off the record at 1:08 p.m. and this is the end of media unit 3.